My name's Emma. I'm 27. I work as a waitress at a small diner, and apparently that means I've failed at life, at least according to my family. They never say it straight out, but I see it in every look, every half smile. My mom, Linda, is a high school teacher. My dad, Rick, runs a construction crew. My sister Laura's a nurse with a nice car and a fiancé who wears sweaters around his shoulders. My brother Jake's a football coach. And me, I bring people pancakes. That's the version of me they like to keep alive. The sweet but aimless daughter. Last month they invited me to a family dinner. It's been too long, my mom said on the phone, like she was doing me a favor. I almost said no, but guilt won. So that Friday, after a double shift, I drove to their house, smelling like coffee and fries. The moment I walked in, the air felt heavy. Laura looked me up and down. "Still wearing your work clothes?" she asked, smiling that smile that isn't really a smile. Mom laughed. "Well, at least she's working hard." "Right, honey." Dad was at the grill. He didn't look up. "You know, if you'd gone to college like Laura, you wouldn't have to pull those hours." I bit my tongue. I'd heard it all before. The small talk was all about Jake's new coaching job, Laura's wedding plans, their vacation. No one asked about me. I was background noise, like the hum of the fridge. When dinner was over, Mom asked me to help with the dishes. As I stood there washing plates, she said softly, "You're such a good girl, Emma. I just wish you'd find something you're passionate about." I almost laughed. If only she knew. I'd always loved painting. Since I was a kid, it was the only thing that made me feel seen. But they never cared. When I tried to talk about art school, Dad said, "You can't make a living painting pictures." That sentence killed something inside me. After dinner, I went to my car, sat behind the wheel, and finally let the tears fall. I was so tired of being their disappointment. I called Nate. He's my boyfriend. He works in a garage, smells like oil and mint gum, and he never once made me feel small. He picked up right away. "Rough night?" he asked. I told him everything. The jokes, the looks, the way they spoke about me like I wasn't even there. He said, "they don't get to decide who you are. You're talented. I've seen your work. You just gotta show the world, not them." "Show the world," I repeated quietly. That night, something clicked. For years, I'd waited for my family to respect me, to see me. But maybe I didn't need them to. Maybe I just needed to prove it to myself. When I got home, I took out my old sketchbook, the one covered in coffee stains, and flipped through the pages. My hands were shaking, but I picked up a pencil anyway. I started to draw. It wasn't pretty or planned. It was raw. All the anger, the hurt, the years of being invisible poured onto the paper. The next morning, Nate came by with coffee. I showed him the sketch. He looked at it for a long time, then nodded. "That's it," he said. "That's the real you." And for the first time in years, I felt something like hope. Not the fake kind that depends on other people's approval. The quiet, steady kind that comes from finally deciding you're done being small. I didn't know where it would lead, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let them keep writing my story. This time, I'd write it myself. I didn't quit the diner. I couldn't. Rent doesn't care about your dreams. So I kept pouring coffee in the mornings and drawing at night, stealing hours from sleep like a thief who finally found something worth risking jail for. Nate watched me grind myself down and didn't try to fix it. He showed up with tacos. He rubbed the knot between my shoulder blades. He said, "You want more space? I'll make you space." I thought he meant another corner of my apartment, but the next Saturday, he drove me across town to an old detached garage behind a yellow house with peeling paint. The owner was his friend's aunt. The garage smelled like dust and rain and tires. There was one bare bulb and a crooked workbench. It looked like a place where dreams went to die. Nate put his hands on his hips and said, "Studio." I laughed. Then I realized he wasn't joking. He'd already talked to the aunt. He'd already paid the first month out of his savings. I can't let you do this, I said, but my voice wasn't strong. Too late, he said. Also, you're going to pay me back with paintings I can brag about. We spent that afternoon sweeping out dead leaves, hauling off rusted junk, and scrubbing the concrete floor. Nate fixed the light, then hung two more. He built me easels from scrap wood and set up a big fan. The sound of the drill mixed with the thump of my heart. When we were done, the sun was low and the space glowed warm. I stood in the middle with paint on my jeans, and for the first time, I could picture a future that had my name on it. I painted at night. I'd work the early shift, nap for an hour after, then drive to the garage with a bag of brushes and a playlist that covered the noise in my head. I painted what it felt like to be spoken over. I painted a kitchen table where every chair was full except mine. I painted a girl holding plates that kept cracking in her hands. I painted a house with bright windows and one door that never opened. Sometimes I cried. Sometimes I swore. Sometimes I laughed because the colors did something I didn't expect, and it felt like the world winked at me. Nate would stop by after the shop closed. He'd lean against the doorframe with a soda and say, "Holy hell, Em." He never told me what to paint. He didn't give advice. He just stood there like a lighthouse, and I kept steering toward him. I posted a few pictures on Instagram. Nothing fancy. A shot of a corner of a canvas, a smear of red with a caption that said, "Late." 10 likes, then 20. A stranger commented, "This punched me in the throat." I read it 3 times. At the diner, my hands moved on autopilot. Coffee, waffles, smile, repeat. One afternoon, a regular named Marlene slid into my section. She wore big earrings and the kind of lipstick that makes a statement even when you're eating a burger. She's the lady who tips in 5s, folded like little flags. I brought her the usual. She glanced at my forearm, where a streak of ultramarine had survived the morning shower. "You paint?" she asked. "A little," I said, embarrassed and proud at the same time. "Show me." She held out her phone like it was normal to ask for someone's secret. I hesitated, then pulled up my page. She scrolled slow. Her face changed. When she looked up, her eyes were shiny. "My niece runs a community gallery on Maple," she said. "We do small shows, rotating walls. We're booked through summer, but I could get her to squeeze you into the next open slot. You have enough pieces?" Maybe, I said. My heart climbed into my throat. "Enough pieces? Enough courage?" She laughed softly. "You're ready. Trust me." That night, I told Nate. He lifted me off the ground and spun me like a kid. "We're doing it," he said. "We're doing it." We counted the paintings. 12 that felt honest. 3 that needed more time. I told myself I'd aim for 10 on the wall, 2 in the back just in case. For a week, I painted like the deadline was a person who could catch me. I named the series Family Portraits, even though there were no faces. Just shapes and rooms and hands and plates, and a girl whose shadow always stretched a little too long. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell Laura or Jake. I told myself it was because I wanted to surprise them. But the truth was simpler. I wanted one quiet place where their voices didn't echo. They still called sometimes. Mom would ask if I was saving any money, then talk for 20 minutes about Laura's shower and Jake's new whistle. Dad left a voicemail about a job opening at the hardware store. "Good benefits," he said, like that was the only reason a person got out of bed. I said thank you. I said I'd think about it. I didn't. On the Friday before the opening, the gallery sent a proof of the flyer. My name. A date. The title in black letters that looked bolder than I felt. I stared at it until the words blurred. Nate taped a copy beside the light switch in the garage. "So you see it every time you leave," he said. We made tiny price tags I was sure no one would read. I bought a cheap dress at the thrift store, then chickened out and decided to wear jeans. Nate polished his boots. He kept asking if I wanted to practice what I'd say to people. I told him I'd just speak the truth. These are the rooms I grew up in. This is the silence I swallowed. This is the girl I'm trying to forgive. The night before, I drove past my parents' house. Lights were on in the living room. Through the window, I could see them watching TV. For a second, I almost stopped. I almost walked in and said, "Hey, I'm doing a thing." But I kept driving. I wasn't hiding, I was choosing. Back at the garage, I stood in front of the biggest canvas. It was a kitchen painted in blues and bruised purples, a table with 4 perfect chairs, and one turned away. I touched the edge where the paint dried thick. My throat burned. "You're enough," I whispered, but I wasn't sure if I meant me or the painting. I turned off the lights. The fan ticked as it slowed. Outside, the night smelled like wet pavement and cut grass. I locked the door and held the key like it was proof. Tomorrow, strangers would look at what I survived. Tomorrow, I'd stand beside my work without apologizing. Starting from nothing doesn't mean starting empty. It means starting with yourself. And for the first time, that felt like plenty. The gallery on Maple was smaller than I imagined. White walls, scuffed floors, a bell that chimed when you opened the door. It smelled like lemon cleaner and fresh coffee. Marlene's niece, Tasha, hugged me the second I walked in. "Your family," she said, like it was obvious. I nodded so I wouldn't cry. We hung the pieces in a line that felt like breathing. The kitchen with the turned chair. The girl with cracked plates. A hallway that never ended. A front porch lit up like a stage no one wanted to stand on. Nate held the level and squinted. "A hair to the left," he'd say, and I'd move it, and we'd step back together. I printed small cards with the titles and short notes. I kept the notes honest. This is the room I grew up in. This is the sound of not being asked. This is the door that stayed shut. By 6, the place hummed. Friends of Tasha's, neighbors, a couple holding hands like they were learning how. Marlene wore a velvet jacket and kissed both my cheeks. "Look at you," she whispered. "Look at your work breathing." People stood in front of my paintings and got quiet. Some tilted their heads. Some folded their arms. A few looked at me, then looked away, like the canvas had said something too personal. A teenager with chipped black nail polish asked if she could take a picture. A man in a denim jacket said, "That table, I swear I've eaten there." I told him I had too. At some point, I realized I wasn't shaking. My palms were dry. My voice didn't break. I said thank you like I meant it, and I did. Nate drifted around, not hovering, just existing in my corner like a sturdy chair. Our eyes would meet, and he'd grin like he had a secret. Maybe the secret was me. Around 7, a woman with silver hair and a red scarf stopped at the largest canvas. She didn't move for a long time. Then she called to a man by the door, her husband maybe, with clean boots and kind eyes. They spoke in low voices. Tasha came over. I held my breath without realizing it. The woman turned to me. "Is this yours?" she asked, even though my name was right there. "Yes," I said. "It's honest," she said. "It's not trying to impress me. It's telling me something." She tapped the corner of the price tag with one manicured finger. "We'd like this one, and the porch, if they're still available." For a second, the room tilted. I grabbed the edge of the pedestal with the guest book and nodded. "They are?" Tasha squeezed my elbow. The couple wrote their names on paperwork I didn't know galleries used. The numbers next to the titles suddenly meant rent and groceries and fresh canvas. Nate mouthed, "You did it." I shook my head, then let myself smile. I did. While the couple signed, a guy from the local paper asked if he could take a picture. "Human interest," he said. "Local artist makes good." He made me stand beside the kitchen painting. I didn't know what to do with my hands, so I slid them into my back pockets and looked at the corner so I wouldn't blink. The flash popped. He asked for a quote. I said, "These are rooms I know." He wrote it down like it mattered. By 9, my cheeks hurt from smiling. 2 more pieces had red dots. Someone reserved a small canvas for pickup next week. Strangers hugged me. A woman cried and apologized for crying. "Don't," I told her. "I painted it because I cried." She laughed through it and bought a print. When the bell finally chimed for the last time and Tasha locked the door, I leaned my forehead against the cool wall and breathed. The room still buzzed, like after a thunderstorm when the air can't calm down. Nate put his arms around me from behind and rested his chin on my shoulder. "You stood up there," he said softly, "all night. You didn't flinch." "I was terrified," I said. "Good," he said. "It means you were alive." We loaded the unsold pieces into the garage later, moving slow, careful not to nick the corners. I kept looking at the two empty spaces on the wall where the sold ones had been, like missing teeth my tongue couldn't ignore. I fell asleep on the studio floor under my jacket, the fan whispering, the smell of paint sweet and sharp. When I woke up, the sky was pink like someone had rubbed it with an eraser. Sunday morning, my phone exploded. Messages from people I barely knew. Photos of me beside the painting in the paper, with the caption, "Local server, local artist." The article was small, a column and a half, but it was everything. My name spelled right. My quote there in black ink. I laughed out loud alone in my kitchen and scared the cat I don't have. At noon, Mom called. I stared at the screen until it stopped buzzing. She called again, then texted, "We saw the article. So proud of you, sweetie." Proud. The word landed like a coin in an empty jar. Another text. "We knew you had it in you." Did you? I typed nothing. I set the phone face down. Dad left a voicemail that started with a cough and an awkward pause. "Your mother showed me the paper," he said. "Looks like people liked your pictures. Maybe we misjudged the art thing. Anyway, dinner tonight? Your sister's making a roast. We can celebrate." Laura sent a photo of the article circled in red with "OMG famous" written over it. Jake added a thumbs up. The group chat lit like a pinball machine. I watched the messages stack and felt oddly calm, like the moment after a wave knocks you over and you're still underwater, deciding whether to swim. Nate saw my face. "They reaching out?" "Yeah," I said. "They want dinner." He didn't push. "Do you want to go?" I thought of the white walls and the red dots, and the woman with the red scarf saying honest. I thought of the kitchen painting and the chair turned away on purpose. I thought of tiny price tags that had paid for something bigger than rent. "I'll go," I said finally, "but I'm not going to convince them of anything." "Good," he said. "You don't owe them a show." At 5, I washed the paint off my hands with dish soap and lemon. I wore jeans and a clean shirt. No dress. I put the newspaper in my bag, not as proof, but as armor. I kissed Nate in the driveway. He squeezed my hand. "Call if you need to," he said. "I won't need to," I said, but I knew he meant, "I've got you." I drove toward the house I grew up in with the sun in my eyes and the air heavy with cut grass. The same street, the same mailbox, the same porch light that always burned too bright. The door opened before I knocked. My mother's smile was wide and nervous. "Emma," she said. "Come in, honey. We've been waiting." Mom hugged me like we'd never been anything but close. Her perfume was the same powdery floral that used to cling to my school sweaters. The living room looked exactly like I left it. Family photos in crooked frames, a crocheted blanket on the couch, the TV muted but flashing a game. Laura and Jake stood up like I was a guest of honor. "There she is," Dad said, like he'd been cheering for me the whole time. He clapped once. "Our artist," I said. "Hi," and took my shoes off. My heart was steady. That surprised me. At the table, Laura launched into it. "I told my coworkers you sold 2 paintings," she said. "They were like, 'She must be really talented.' I said you always were." Jake nodded. "Yeah, remember that eagle you drew in 8th grade? Nailed it." Mom passed the roast. "We kept saying you had potential, didn't we, Rick?" Dad carved with ceremony. "Always said she had something," he answered, as if the knife needed convincing too. "Just took the long road is all." I watched steam rise off the meat and wondered when they rehearsed this version. Maybe in the car on the way back from the grocery store. Maybe standing in the aisle with the rolls. "It was a good night," I said. "People came. They felt seen." "Of course they did." Mom said quickly. People love a story. She reached for my hand. And you know we're proud. That article. Oh, Emma, I saved a copy. 2 copies. I pulled my hand back gently. I brought one too. I slid the paper from my bag and set it near Dad's plate. The photo of me beside the painting looked small here. But I didn't come to be congratulated. Not like this. The room stilled. Laura's fork tapped the edge of her plate. Dad cleared his throat. I came because you asked, I said, and because I wanted to say something out loud, where I could hear it too. Mom blinked. Sweetheart? For years, I said. You told me who I was. You said it kindly, most of the time. Practical. Sweet. Not ambitious. You joked about my job. You told me what would be smarter. You didn't ask what I wanted, because you didn't think there was anything there worth asking about. Dad set the knife down. Now hold on. I'm not angry at this moment, I said. I was angry for a long time. I was hurt. I learned how to leave parts of myself in the car so I could come inside and not make you uncomfortable. I got good at that. Too good. Laura looked down. We didn't mean… I know, I said. You meant well. You meant safe. Safe for you. But it wasn't safe for me. I took a breath. Last night felt like stepping out of a room I didn't know was locked. No one spoke. In the kitchen, the old clock ticked like a metronome for a song we didn't know how to sing. I'm not here to punish you, I said. I don't need an apology. I'm here to tell you the story right, so I don't have to carry the wrong one. Dad rubbed his jaw. So what do you want from us? His voice was sharper than he meant. Maybe he was scared. I want less, I said. Less advice. Less, we always knew. Less rewriting. If you want to be in my life, you can come to a show and look. You can say, I see it. You can ask, what do you need? If you don't want that, that's okay too. But I'm not the girl at your table you can shape by talking louder. Jake swallowed. Okay. Laura's eyes were wet. I didn't know you felt like that. I didn't know how to say it, I answered. Now I do. Mom pressed her napkin to her lips. I don't want to lose you, she said, small. You won't, I said softly, but you might lose the version that kept your head down so you felt comfortable. We ate in a hush for a minute. The roast tasted like all the Sundays of my childhood. It didn't make me smaller this time. After dinner, I stood and reached for the canvas I'd propped by the doorway. I'd wrapped it in brown paper, taped neat at the corners. I brought you something, I said. It's not for the living room. Put it wherever you keep things that are true. Dad peeled the paper back. The painting showed a house at dusk, windows lit warm. A table inside, 5 chairs. 4 were straight. One was turned slightly outward, like it had just been pushed back by someone standing up. The color of the chair matched the blues I always use for myself. Along the bottom edge, barely there, I'd painted a thin open door leading to a porch light. Mom put a hand to her throat. Laura took a step closer. Jake whistled under his breath. Dad just stared, eyes caught on the turned chair. It's the last family portrait I'll make, I said. It's not a threat. It's a map. I'm that chair. I'm not leaving the house. I'm just not sitting where you set me anymore. Dad nodded once, like a man hearing a weather report and deciding to bring the good coat. Mom wiped her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. I picked up my bag. I'm going, I said. Nate's waiting. Mom hugged me again. Different this time. Not claiming, not sorry, just holding. On the porch, the air smelled like cut grass and soap from someone's dryer. Dad followed me out. He looked older in the dusk, softer. I didn't know, he said. I should have. I'm going to try. I hope so, I said. But I'm not waiting to live while you figure it out. He nodded. Fair. Nate's truck idled at the curb. He leaned across and opened the passenger door before I reached it. No words, just that steady, quiet welcome. I climbed in. He squeezed my knee. How are you? Light, I said. It surprised me. It was true. We drove past the house, past the mailbox, past the corner where the bus used to drop us after school. The sky was the color of a bruise healing. I rested my forehead on the cool window and watched my old street slide away. At the garage, we turned on the lights. The walls were bare where the sold canvases had been. New canvases leaned, blank, patient. I stood there a second, listening to the hum of the fan. Now what? Nate asked. Now I paint, I said. And I live. In that order or not. But I decide. He smiled. Good answer. I dipped a brush in water and dragged it across fresh white. The first stroke was small, then bigger, then sure. I didn't need their permission. I never had. I only needed proof. I had it now, in the rooms I'd made, in the woman I'd been last night, in the chair turned just enough to stand. I wasn't invisible. I was here, and I was done being small.